Hey, and welcome to episode 2 of Podcast, I Guess, the podcast all about the convention and cosplay scene in the Greater Toronto Area. Today we're talking about cosplay photography, the do's and don'ts, and the tips and advice to getting the most out of your con experience. So my name is Pat. I'm going to be your host for this episode, and I've been going to conventions and I've been cosplaying at least since like 2010. I've got a YouTube channel under the name Linkspeaks, and also I've got a Facebook page. I'll link that at the bottom of the video. And also on our panel we have...
I'm Mars. As for my background, I've been cosplaying for many years now. I lost count, but I've since then turned from cosplayer into cosplay videographer, and my channel is Red Planet Productions.
I'm Rachel, and I go as Rayny Cosplay in the cosplay community as well as on Facebook. And I've been cosplaying for about 9 years and working at multiple conventions for about 4 or 5.
Hey, I'm John, and I've been going to cons for about like 15 years. And I don't really cosplay. I just kind of go and hang out, go to panels, and like just go to room parties at night.
Cool, John. You're one of the cool kids like I look up to.
It's okay.
Okay,
Don't worry
yeah?
about it.
Okay. Am I not cool now? Oh, sorry. So today's episode, we're going to talk about cosplay photography, like I mentioned earlier. Now, obviously, when you're a cosplayer, getting photos taken is like very important part of going to a convention because you want something to show for all your hard work and the costume that you've made. You
spent a whole season making costume to wear for one weekend, so you better get some good pictures of it.
Yeah, that seems like such an important part of it. So I've sort of taken photos, but I'm more of a videographer, and I tend to take video of cosplayers and make it into a music video sort of at the end of the con. But I've also done cosplay photography. I've posed for photos rather because I've been a cosplayer before.
Do you want to dive more into that history, how you went from cosplayer to videographer to also a photographer?
Well, once upon a time, I've always been interested in videography first and foremost. Photography was never really that important to me.
Because, you used to vlog for many years.
I did, yeah. That started when I had, like, my dad's Handycam. You know how those really big, like, cassette video that cameras?
All the skaters have when they're videotaping their skate videos.
Yeah, that's a really good description for those type of cameras, actually.
No, maybe like 10 years ago at least from that. Well, probably older than that, really. It's like late 90s. I had my dad's video camera, and I just play around with it making videos, and those will never see the light of day, so you will never know what those were.
Was that before the time of vlogs?
Yeah, because YouTube was the sort of thing that made vlogs, and that was like 2006, maybe, that started to be a thing. So it was well before that. I was in like grade school, high school, and I was like playing around with a video camera, and it got to the point where I could afford to, or at least I could ask my dad for a video camera for Christmas, and I had like a little JVC Vario that was sort of that tiny thing that you put in the palm of your hand, and it had like a flip out monitor on it, and I thought that was so cool because it was for the first time I was actually filming in like a digital file, and I didn't have to take it off like a cassette because back in the day cassettes were like the only thing that you could film on. And they were really inconvenient because the quality was terrible and you really didn't get much recording time.
And the camera was big.
And the camera was really big. Yeah, like it had like a little flip up viewfinder that you stick your eye in, and you had to basically all you could do was zoom in and out. And it had like a big microphone on it. But yeah, I had that, and I did vlogs with that, and I used to do vlogs with like a point and shoot sort of, I'd call it a vacation camera because it's the kind of camera that your mom would take on vacation somewhere, basically just a digital camera, and I used to do vlogs on that. And then I finally got like an actual DSLR Canon T3. So what ended up happening was I used to vlog a lot at conventions. before I even went to conventions, I was vlogging. And I used to do like a costage. I called that because it was like cosplay montage set to music within the video.
And this is revolutionary.
This is still on my channel, by the way.
He's the first.
If you look at I'm not the first. No, don't say that. I'm not the first to do this. But at the on my channel, if you look at it, I'm not trying to promote it or anything, but you know, check it out, you know, whatever.
The link's down below.
Yeah, my old videos are like that. And then I got to the point where I realized nobody cared what I was saying. They just watched the videos so they could look at the cosplays that were in there. So that's what I started doing. I just made cosplay music videos, and that's what I do now. And videos are fun to do because, I don't know, it's just more dynamic, I think, than photography. Because you can get multiple angles of the cosplayer, and you can get them like acting and doing stuff instead of just posing still and looking sort of like a runway model, you know. do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go for my history as well because I share a very similar history. I was a cosplayer for many years, and then I started to grow an interest in videography, and now I go to school for videography here at Ryerson. And the problem was that cosplaying is a really expensive hobby and takes up a lot of time, and so is videography. Videography, you're spending like thousands of dollars on gear, and it takes a while to like make shoot videos, edit them together, and produce them. And so I had these two hobbies, and I could only really pick one. And because one is what I wanted to pursue in the future, I had to pick videography. But to kind of compensate, I do most of my videos about photography, so I could still stay within the cosplay community. So on my channel on Red Planet Productions on YouTube, I shoot mostly kind of like costages, as you say, or those cosplay montages set to music, typical cosplay music videos, as well as I'm trying to get into more vlogging as well, kind of just doing higher production valued vlogs about the convention life, very similar to this podcast, but just like more episodic in videos.
Okay. When I started using the word costage, I thought it was so revolutionary. Like,
It doesn't roll off the tongue though. Costage.
Costage? It doesn't.
Yeah.
What does
Yeah, it
montage
does.
roll off the tongue?
Costage, I think, is good.
But that's
It could be
basically
a
what my
contage. 'Cause it's
Contage.
like-
Montage. I like that better.
that makes a
Oh,
little
that's
more
actually
sense because I
trademark.
like to film the
Heard here
convention
first.
as well.
TM.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Trademark. Patent pending. So basically, it was fun to do that to start off with, and I realized that that's what really only. So there was actually a point when I was making those vlog videos with the costages, and I would put in the description, skip to this point if you don't want to hear me talking, just want to see the costumes and stuff. So I realized that if I wanted to do a vlog, it should just be a separate video that no one would watch instead of taking up time in the main video.
But this episode is about photography.
Yes,
not,
that's true.
Not videography. So let's get into the meat of it.
Okay, so I do take photos as well. I wouldn't say I'm like a good photographer. I know the basics, I guess. And the thing about cosplay photography is it's easier to turn around, I guess.
For sure.
With a video, you're sort of grouping everybody you shot at the convention into one project. And although they can maybe share that video on their page or whatever, it's more personal if you're doing like a photo set, because that's something that they can use like everywhere.
Well, then why can't you just make a video only about
You can.
one cosplayer?
You
know?
can.
Kind of
You
like
can.
taking a photo set, but a video. Does that take too much
I
time?
like to call that a showcase. Like it's basically just
So why
or a
don't
spotlight,
why can't you? What's
basically.
wrong with doing that? Is that a problem?
Well, the thing about photo editing and the difference between photo editing and video editing is I don't want to say the one is more intensive than the other, because that's going to
Is
I'm
it
on your
though?
back to argue
I
that
mean,
video is
yeah.
more intensive than
Yeah.
I mean, is it though?
photos.
You can say it.
It can be.
Definitely. I think the biggest problem for me is that when you're dealing with cosplayers, they know how to pose for photos, but they don't necessarily have any more
Yeah.
poses than 2 or 3, and they don't necessarily act. and sometimes they're very, very awkward on camera, and it's really hard to edit out all that awkwardness. It's just really surprising. Like, some people just aren't very good on camera at all, and it's really hard to fake that in a video. In photos, you could use Photoshop to like fix up,
Yeah.
like expressions or whatever, but
Yeah,
it's harder to fake in video.
That's the thing. Like, you can take 100 photos basically of the same pose, and you can just pick and choose maybe one.
And it doesn't take too long to take 100 photos
Yeah.
of the same pose.
But video, first of all, takes up way more memory in your camera. And secondly,
Damn it, why don't we live in the future?
I don't know, man. If only cameras had like a terabyte of storage on
Yeah.
them, we wouldn't have to worry about them. But as it stands now, you will usually have to take so many takes of video on one particular action or movement.
Move, yeah.
Yeah. So it sort of takes up space, and
Mhm.
then you've got so many other cosplayers to look at. So,
And it's also really annoying scrubbing through all the footage and, double checking every single shot to see if he was okay. And most of the time, there's always something that goes wrong with it. Either your framing is off, or either they miss, the timing on their pose or something like that. It's just tougher to edit. Rather than pictures, you just like look at the picture. If it's good, keep it. If it's not good, scrap it. It's definitely more intensive for video.
yeah. Okay. We are talking about photography mostly, though. A few of us here are cosplayers. John, I know you don't really count, but does anyone have any stories related to doing photo shoots with photographers?
Story time.
Yeah.
Story time. I think one of my, it's a favorite kind of like on the fence memory, and it actually has to do with like a video. I was wearing a cosplay of Gloria from Devil May Cry, and it's kind of a costume that really reinforces the whole butt flap, crotch flap philosophy. I don't know. Anyway, it's just a huge butt flap cosplay, and I just remember finding this one video on this girl's vlog about me at a convention, and she was kind of like, "Oh, look at that girl," and she like zoomed in on my butt in the video.
That's
She's
amazing.
like, so brave, and I was like, "Oh boy, well, it's not."
That's really funny.
She wasn't being mean about it, but she was just like, "Oh, that girl's so brave," and then just my butt.
Did you
And-
comment on it saying
Oh,
like,
I totally
hey,
did.
that's
I
my
was
butt?
like, "Hey, that's my butt." But I think photographer-wise, I've made a lot of friends. I think through just being a cosplayer and like that interface. One of my really great friends, Robert Johnson, he photographed me in actually that same cosplay, and then I got talking with him afterwards, and that's how I got my job through him as the person who got me the job with Wizards of the Coast as a contractor with them. So it's just opened doors for me. But generally, I think it's been a positive experience. I think one of the more negative experiences with photographers is like the creepy ones. I think maybe the ones who want you to do more suggestive poses, or if you are in a group, they want you to fill their fan fiction needs, and also those who are obviously trying to get that crotch shot.
Can you, what do you mean by fulfill their, what fan fiction?
Please
What does
elaborate.
that mean? What does that mean?
So I think it has to do a lot, like if I'm in a group and maybe there's 2 female characters or 2 male characters, or a male and a female character, doesn't matter, they'll often ask you to maybe just do very sexual poses with them, or maybe kiss them, or just like hug them or grope them, and like often I'm with friends, but it's still something I don't want to comfortably do in front of another person, even if it is as a joke, or just that's their favorite character pairing. And then I have heard, of course, of stories of certain photographers who have certain fetish niches, like feet, or taking photos of,
Which is a whole nother episode to talk about.
Yeah, we
exactly.
won't
that
get
could be
into
its
that
whole
now.
episode by itself, but yeah.
Okay. There's something I've heard about that happens a lot, apparently, where not a photographer, but a person with a camera will go up to someone that's not even actually cosplaying and just ask for a photo. Have you ever experienced that? I mean, I haven't.
Is this
but-
just at a convention or
Yeah.
in public? Oh.
Not in public. no.
I've been in a kigurumi before. I remember I've worn my kigurumi, and maybe I'll just throw on just a natural colored wig because my hair has been nappy wig hair all weekend. And often people will just ask me for my photo, and I'm like, okay, great. Like, I'm not cosplaying, but I'll pose. Like, sure. So
Is it that weird that people ask for photos when you're not cosplaying? Because like people have asked for my photos when I'm not cosplaying.
Really?
Really?
Not at
you
conventions,
have a story?
but like
Oh, is
not
that
at conventions, but like
for like fashion
magazines
blogs
and
or
stuff.
Oh, really?
for like published
wow.
magazines and whatever?
I think like in public, like in just regular everyday real life, I've been asked for photos before just because they either liked what I was wearing or my hair or something, which I found was like, okay, I guess that's cool.
I feel like if they don't state a reason, then it's weird. But in John's case, if they approach him saying like, "Hey, I really love your outfit. Can I take your picture for like a fashion blog or something?" then it's fine.
What if they were lying about it? I still don't care, to be
They
honest.
could. They easily could be like, "Hey, can I just have this for my personal collection?"
Like I actually just don't really care
Yeah.
personally. Like a person could come up to me and they could literally say, "Hey, I'm gonna like touch myself thinking about you at night. I'm gonna take a picture." I actually don't care.
That's
That's just me.
That's because
Like I actually won't care.
John, can you admit that's because you're a guy and it just doesn't matter?
Well, I don't know if that's sexist, but I just don't care. I don't know if it's
Sexist towards
because
what, guys?
I don't know if it's it could be. I don't know if it's because I'm a guy or just how I am. I just don't really. It's not a big deal to me.
Well, you've got a 15-year
Con
cosplay
experience. Yeah, you're right.
5 years.
That's true.
Well, what if so, and I think that's actually interesting. Like, what's the difference? Like when you're cosplaying, versus when you're just your real live self at a convention and someone asks you to take a photo. Like, is it okay? Like, would you
It's definitely
want
strange.
pictures of your real life self on the internet on someone's random blog? Like, what if they asked you to do a foot photo shoot with like
Absolutely.
you?
We're dancing around this again.
I just wish, like, if they just had a reason, like, if they said, "Oh, I really love your style. Can I just take a picture, like, as reference or something?" Or "I really love your hair." But if they don't have a reason, then it's weird.
Yeah.
That's my stance on it.
Oh, it's interesting.
But yeah, that's a good point. In terms of other photography stories, Pat, do you have any good photography stories? Feel good photography stories?
I'd love to hear from
Photography
your ends,
specifically?
like about stories about being a photographer.
Well, I have one as a photographer, or sorry, as a cosplayer. It was I think like Fan Expo 2013, something like that, 2012, and
Chic?
yeah,
Yeah.
nailed it. And I had been cosplaying for a while, but I never did like professional photo shoots. Where like, you know, you'd book someone and they'd spend like half an hour with you. And so because I was always very passive, like I didn't want to ask people, like I always felt like I was troubling their time or whatever. And it was Fan Expo, and I forgot the reasons what happened. I remember there was a meetup, we were all hanging out, which I wanted to go to, and then my friends that I were with, they decided to leave. And so for a period of time, I was just kind of alone and just like wandering the convention by myself, which was a completely new experience for me. But it turned out to be awesome. Like, I was wandering through the halls and I met a photographer. He was Paul Hiller, who runs
yeah.
11th Photography, I think.
Yeah, he's pretty well known.
Yeah,
I think.
No,
And-
Paul Hillier, he's not 11th photograph.
He's not?
No, that's the half beard guy.
Oh,
Half
well,
beard.
I think his photography
You know
page
how
is
his
maybe
like
just
half
called.
his beard is blonde. And
Oh, sorry. It was 11th. He was 11th Photography.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Not Paul Hiller then.
I think he's like his own. Like that's
I feel
just
like
his name.
I might be wrong. But
yeah, his name is just his
Yeah.
photography is just Paul Hillier.
Okay. Anyway,
I
11
think.
photography. Sure.
I could be
Name
wrong.
dropping.
I don't know now. But anyways, so he came up to me. He saw my costume and he asked if he could do a photo shoot with me. And he seemed pretty legitimate. I saw he had a prop camera on him. It was like 20 times the size of a regular camera, and he was
Yeah, I've
joking
seen it.
around with cosplayers saying, "Oh, can I take your photo?" And then like he'd whip around from his back this ginormous like camera as a joke. And so when he came up to me, I thought he was kidding, but he's like, "No, but seriously, I'm like a real photographer. Can I take your picture?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And so, which was weird because like I was still kind of young at the time, and I'm like, "Oh, like strangers and whatnot." But we went outside in the big grassy area, and he had actually had like strobe lights and whatnot, so like, you know, he was like legitimate, right? And he took some really nice photos, but I was so new to photography that I only had like 1 or 2 poses, and like he didn't give me any direction at all. So like every single photo was like the exact same pose, which is awful, even though the photo looked great. But he also brought me to a second location, which was just under the like the street overpass.
Mm-hmm.
So there's cars going on each side, but there's like this little like
Island.
concrete,
Oh, you're talking
island.
about like the Simcoe Street,
Yeah.
like under.
Mhm.
Thing.
So he had me stand in the middle of the island and like pose there while like cars were rushing back and forth, and he took some pictures there, and they looked awesome.
That seems like a really sick
Yeah.
location.
So that was really cool,
photos.
and like cars were honking and stuff like that, but he was fun. My only regret is as a kid, or like, you know, back in my youngin' days when I was cosplaying as Chic, was that when I posted on Facebook, I was that asshole who removed the watermark because I felt like he was taking away from the photo.
Literally Hitler.
Yeah, and I feel really bad about it now, but I should definitely credit
I
him.
actually got a question about the watermarks. Like, how much watermarking do you think is acceptable for a like a photo?
Maybe like a bottom corner. It shouldn't take up like more than maybe
Well,
a.
actually, before that, tell me what is the purpose of a watermark?
It just gives credit back to the photographer.
Yeah,
who
you
took it.
want the like obviously the photographer needs credit for his work, his or her work. So the watermark is there to just sort of remind people who did it.
I think one thing, like as a cosplayer and seeing watermarks, I don't mind them. I think they're great. If they're not taking away from the photo itself. But I think it's a really great just sourcing tool, because sometimes I'll have a photo, I'm like, shit, I don't remember where I saved this from. And then it'll have the watermark in the corner. And I'm like, great, perfect. But I think in regards, because I know some photographers will take their logo and then put it really, really close to like the person in the image,
Oh, yeah.
so
That's
that
annoying.
it's just like right there, or they'll
Yeah.
put it on the costume, like. And
Really?
I saw one where like they'd put it like on the costume, like just in dark spaces, and I
Yeah,
was like, this is really awkward.
I have seen watermarks that go right across the middle of the
Yeah.
picture.
I guess I feel like if they had done the shoot for free, that's kind of their payment for it. It gives them exposure, and like, you know, if they're doing a shoot for free for you, then like you can't really ask to remove the watermark or put it somewhere, you know, less noticeable, right?
Yeah, well, I've heard that if you are paying for the photographer to take your pictures, you could ask them for a, I guess, non-watermarked
Because
picture.
the
Yeah,
photos
actually,
technically.
But that's the thing, though.
belong to
Like,
you,
are you
kind
supposed
of.
to post that on your like face on your cosplay
That's the
page?
okay.
You can't.
Let me give you an example. I know a photographer local to this GTA that they charge for photos. Their photos are really good, but they don't watermark them. So essentially, the cosplayer can do whatever they want with them, and they don't really have to credit them. But I mean, it would be nice if they did. But that's basically the price. Like, you pay to just do whatever you want with the photos. That's just one person I know. Most photographers will put a watermark on them, at least, just so they get exposure.
One person I know who does do cosplay photography, or just photography in general, what they do is you can have, if you ask them for the image without watermark, you can't post it for promotion purposes, so on your cosplay page, but you could use it if you had a portfolio and you were maybe applying to an art school and you wanted to show off your cosplay. But if you were to use it for promotional purposes, you would have to either pay them like a little premium extra to get that unwatermarked photo. But and also if you are selling your print, there was like a whole other like thing you had to do.
No, I guess if the watermark is like at a reasonable spot and it's like at a reasonable size, let's say like really like relatively tiny and it's in the corner, I don't think it really matters that much. Like you could still
No, it
post
doesn't
that
matter at all. Like, having the watermark there isn't a detriment. It's cross promotion, right? Because the cosplayer promotes the photographer, and the photographer obviously, we'll get into this in a second, but the photographer has the rights to the photo, so they can post it wherever they want, and they promote the photographer at the same
But that's
time.
what I'm saying. Like, there has to be kind of like a reasonable like size. That's the watermark.
Yeah,
should
okay,
be, right?
so I think it shouldn't cover the cosplayer. I think it should be in the bottom Right. That's typically the place where it goes. But I don't think it should I don't think it should detriment from the photo, basically. That's the mark of a good watermark.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Although if it's in the corner, I guess you could just crop
Yeah,
it
you
out.
could crop it if you're an
really
asshole.
Scumbag,
You could,
yeah, if you're like a
you
scumbag,
could.
Like
you
me.
cut it out. But.
One of the things I read about recently is that Canada has like this new copyright law in terms of photography. Like, I didn't.
Is this the news story that our friend posted recently?
Yeah.
Because I looked into that news story and it was actually posted 4 years ago.
Okay, so it's not new.
Yeah, so I was a bit confused.
That's one of the things. Like, I read that and I thought, why didn't we I thought we had this already. Like, photographers had the rights to their photos. That's a given, isn't it? Like, but apparently that wasn't the case 4 years ago or whatever it was. But basically, the photographer has the say for what happens to the photo if it's used without their permission. They have, the back doors and legal permission to do whatever they need to protect their copyright. But as it stands now, I don't know if the cosplayer really has any rights, and the model at least, because that's what happens in this.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think, like, how it's supposed to work is, let's say I'm just taking pictures with my cell phone, like in public. Okay?
Yeah.
I think it's legal for me to do that, as long as like the people that are in my pictures are in the view of public eyes. Like if I'm taking a picture of, like, let's say the CN Tower, and then the tourist at the bottom of it's just like hanging out, they can't like come to me and be like, hey, you have to delete that picture because I'm in it. Well, too bad, because you're in public, so I'm just taking a picture.
Yeah,
in public.
that makes sense.
You can't tell me to delete.
So you can't.
Correct?
The difference is you can't like peek into someone's bedroom window.
Oh yeah, I can't go into like your house and like take a picture of your bedroom when you're sleeping. That's obviously you're not in public.
I almost want to say that's incorrect because I was talking to a videographer friend of mine, the exact same question, like if they're in a public space, am I technically allowed to film them? And I'm pretty sure the answer was no, for Canada at least. I'm not 100% sure though, but I'm pretty sure it's no.
Well, then I have a question then. If I'm taking like a haul shot of a cosplayer, let's just say with my cell phone at a convention, there are people in the background. And they are technically they didn't sign up to be in my picture, so am I doing something illegal?
No, if they saw your picture and if their face was visible enough that, it's understandably them, they can ask you to take it down.
We can say the word technically a lot, but we honestly don't know what we're
But I
guess
mean,
none of us are lawyers.
Like, we don't know the laws.
And
None of us are
it's a whole
lawyers.
different law when it's like inside a private function too, because sometimes the private function owns like the rights to it. I'm not too sure though. I could be talking out of my ass here.
Maybe we should just. But something to think about, I guess.
Yeah, something to think about
okay.
definitely. So
Leave a comment.
let's also get into the meat of it, which is some advice and tips that we've gained over the years in our experience. Like, what is some of the top advice that you'd give for cosplayers and also to photographers to get the best out of their experience?
Okay. If you're a cosplayer and you're looking to book with a photographer, I would ask around about that particular photographer, because they should have a reputation, whether good or bad or whatever, but you should know about them before.
And there are definitely some photographers in the GTA location that have a bad reputation, but a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good to ask around, not just one friend group, but a few other friend groups, because you don't know, maybe the photographer is friends with them, but they don't actually know their work ethic and whatnot. And definitely book as quick as you can. I mean, if you are new to the scene, it's hard to know photographers, and they may not want to book with you because they've never worked with you before. But a lot of times you'll find on cosplay.com or even on Facebook groups, there are new photographers who just want to build a portfolio that are looking for models to shoot with. So it's good to book there as well, but always do your research as well.
I kind of I guess I have a question for you guys. You know how like people book like photo shoots with like photographers? Have they not like checked out like the photographer's pictures and then be like, wow, this guy is not very good at taking pictures. Like, I should not like book with them. Like, it just boggles my mind that like people are still booking with like these terrible like unskilled
Yeah.
Sometimes they
photographers.
have no other people to book with. 'Cause no one
Diligence is key. If you don't look into it, then you're asking for trouble. Well, I mean, sometimes you might get lucky, but you should really look into it.
And
before-
That's what I'm saying. Like, why don't like seriously? Like, I'm not a photographer, but geez.
Yeah.
some people are really new to the scene too. You know, there's like these preteens
Yeah.
are just getting into cosplaying, and if they just hear photographer, they presume that they're a professional, right? And they don't care what kind of pictures they get, so long as they're pictures. They want some pictures. That's it.
You could use the word photographer for anyone that holds a camera, though.
That's true.
That's the thing. Like, there's no legal sort of. You can't get a certificate. Well, I mean, you can get like a bachelor's in photography or whatever, but most photographers are just they go on what they've already done, and they have some sort of online presence or like a portfolio that you could look up. So it's diligence is key, like I said before.
Another big tip is that if you're cosplaying a new character, come up with at least 5-6 poses and practice in front of the mirror. There's good angles and there's bad angles, and you really want to check to see how you look in the mirror before you're posing on camera. You don't want to come back after a long convention, take a look at your photos, and realize that they're all bad because you couldn't get your angle right.
There's another thing, though. Imagine if you don't get your photos for like several months after.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens because some photographers take a while to edit. And in terms of videographers, we kind of have to do it quickly.
Mhm.
But photographers, they don't really have like a time limit where they need to do it.
A lot of them are doing it for free as well. It's their hobby. So.
Yeah. The ones that charge usually, I mean, they try to get it, but it varies depending on who it is. So if you do a photo shoot with someone, make sure that's another thing you want to check, like how quickly they give you back your photos.
Do you think there's kind of like a general, I guess, time frame that they should get the photos back to you? Is there kind of like a consensus?
I'd say like between a week and a month.
Yeah, a month-ish is... I'd give it a bit more leeway. Like, I mean, maybe a couple months is
Depends how
kinda
big the
pushing
shoot
it, but
was.
yeah. I've known people that are still waiting for their photos from 2013, and I don't know who the people.
Are
I
they
can't
ever
remember who
gonna
the
get
people.
them?
I'm not gonna name names because I don't know. I don't remember who the people are, and I don't remember who the photographer is. But I know there are people that are waiting 2 years on for their photos,
Mhm.
and like that's like they paid for them too. So
Oh shit.
yeah.
I remember maybe like 3 years ago at Anime North, I was cosplaying as Batgirl, and a friend of mine, and he was his first cosplay, was cosplaying as Robin, and we didn't have any photographers booked, right? So as you know, we were walking around the convention, we got stopped for a picture, and the guy had a pretty decent camera, and so after he took our picture, we asked him if he had any time to, you know, do a photo shoot, which is a good idea, by the way, in case you don't have any photo shoots lined up. Like, feel free to ask photographers if they have time to shoot with you. But anyways, so we took a while. He was a really nice guy. I think he was Australian that came to Canada for this convention, and we took a lot of pictures. He was really fun to shoot with. And then he only ever shared 2 photos with us, and I had asked him several times if we could have, like, you know, just all the photos, like whatever happened to them, and he just like cut all contact and never really saw him again. I had his phone number, but he went back to Australia, so like the phone number didn't really work anymore, so that was a really big bummer. So I guess, yeah, definitely know the people you're shooting if. I don't even know where I'm going with this.
I think, like, as a cosplayer, like, one tip I also have is find a place to put your con badge, and also your bags, like, and
for
don't
sure.
rely on your friends, because it is, I feel terrible when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take this photo, put my bags down, or my friend will be like, oh, I'll carry it. I'm like, I'm sorry, like, you don't have to carry my things. But and also, if you are putting your bags down, know where your bags are. If anything, put them with the photographer so that you can see your bags inside.
Sometimes you get carried away, and you know, one photographer asks for a picture, and then like a whole bunch of people flock, and then you're sitting there for a few minutes, right? And you don't know what could happen to your bag.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of scary. I've had stuff stolen that way, where I've put a bag down and I lost like a bunch of manga, I think, one year. So another tip that I have is just being open to the general audience of a convention. People come to conventions to see cosplayers. That's a really big draw. And I think some of the better photos that I've gotten were hall photos sometimes. Like if you don't have time to book with a photographer, just try to get as much hall photos as you can, because you know what, there's going to be gems among them, and some of them will be photographers who just didn't want to book, and they might do like a mini shoot, as we were saying earlier. And then as it goes for posing, if you don't know the source material of your character very well, maybe just look up what like episodes they're in, or manga, or like just look up the source material. What I'll often do is I'll watch fight scenes if it's an anime that has fight scenes, just to see what their moves are, and that would apply to videography, so that if a videographer says whip around and do something at the camera, I can pretend to do their signature move.
Okay, Rachel, so after a convention, when you're looking for online photos of what you've cosplayed, what's the first couple sites like that you look for cosplay photos of yourself?
Usually first one is the Facebook page. So like if we're talking Anime North, it'll be the official Anime North Facebook page, and then the unofficial pages and groups. And then sometimes cosplay.com, because often I find that they have a really good compilation of the photo shoots that went on at the convention.
Though that site is dying a little bit for bigger conventions like Anime North, they do have a sticky thread, which is like the official photographers list of pictures, I guess, and which is a really good resource.
And I've also noticed that you could look on the event page on Facebook. A lot of the times, like, you know, right after the convention, people would be like all hyped to talk about it. It's like, you know, had a great time, whatever. And then a lot of the times it would be like just photo albums of the hall photos that people took. And so I think the event page.
Don't be hurt. It doesn't hurt to post on the official page and just ask, saying, hey, I was cosplaying this on Friday. Does anyone have any pictures? Because a lot of the times, many other cosplayers are going through album after album looking for pictures of themselves. And if they know that you're looking for your own photos, if they come across you, they might share it with you as well.
Also, but Google is a great resource. You just Google convention photos, and often they'll pop up.
I find it's helpful to look on the forums of whatever convention it is. Most large conventions have a forum sort of sub-site, and they'll have like a photo dump thread or whatever. I find it's easier to find pictures on that too, because that's like the go-to for a lot of people. For some reason, they don't go to Facebook as much as they go to the forums.
Now let's talk a little bit more about posing, because that could really make or break a photo. Rachel, do you have any good tips for posing for cosplayers?
So like what I said is, if you don't know your source material, or do know your source material, just refer to your source material. Watch an episode that just focuses on your character, or just try to find out how they act, and like what a pose they do. So I know often characters are very dramatic or have a signature fight move. Just look that up. And then of course, practice in front of a mirror. Find interesting ways. Like, don't just use your arms, utilize your entire body.
Sometimes, even if you just do a quick Google search of your character, you'll often find like their character sheet design. And that character sheet design often has like their most signature pose. So that's a good go-to pose to go with. Also online, there's really good scans of Japanese magazines that offer cosplay advice. And you'll find like a really good resource of like showing different examples of poses you could do. Say if you have a sword, here's 15 different poses you could do, or if you have a staff, these are really good poses as well. And it's really good to mimic them and just look yourself in front of a mirror. And
I think just being aware of your body is a really good thing. Like, don't just do something with your hands. Utilize your hips, your arms, your legs, and just try to find an attractive way to use all of those parts.
I want to say that this sort of thing kind of differs when it comes to videography. If you're a cosplayer with a big costume, you might be approached by a videographer. And one of the things you want to keep in mind is a video is just like 24 pictures a second. So your pose might not be as dynamic as you'd want it to be in full motion video. So if you do get approached by a videographer, such as myself or Mars, you might want to look at a pose that, well, a motion, a movement that looks interesting on camera.
Just have one in your back pocket ready, because videography is a growing trend at conventions, and though a lot of the times the videographers can give directions based off your costume, you know, we don't always know your source material. So it's always better if you know something that's more in character that you could just pull out your back pocket.
Yeah, that's another thing. A photographer generally will know some things, but they won't know everything. You, as a cosplayer rather, you have to know a good deal about who you're cosplaying so you can sort of help the
Though
video.
even if the photographer like doesn't know your source material, they should at least know kind of like how you should like frame the shot and like how to. Maybe he should be able to direct you to how to move your arms in which way, or like stand where, or like turn your torso. Which
Yeah,
angle.
a good photographer would
basic
be able
stuff,
to give
right?
good direction.
We're very lucky that we live in a 4G world. You can basically look up reference photos and shots and stuff on your phone if you need to make the pose look right. But
That's true.
still, as a cosplayer, you should kind of have an idea of what you need to do.
So you think it's more of the cosplayer's job to know how to pose? Or
I
a bit of both,
honestly,
maybe?
yeah, I do, because they're the one cosplaying it. They should know.
They should know how to pose, but the photographer will tell them how to improve it so it looks better on camera.
I think it's definitely up to the cosplayer, because it's really a showcase of you. Like, as much as it's their talent of taking a photo, it is a showcase of your costume. And you really want to, if you are going to spend so much money and so much time into putting it into this costume, you want to show it off in the best light possible and show off interesting elements of your cosplay. I know if you have wings, maybe in a video, open and close your wings if they do that, or
Videographers love that, by the way.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I remember I had my opening closing wings for one of my cosplays, and it was just great. Like, everyone's like, oh my god, do the wing thing. And then if you have a prop, just find interesting angles with it as well, like looking down a sword, or like it's behind you now or something.
Okay, I know I'm bringing this back to videographers a lot. We like to use slow motion. That is like the thing that we do a lot. So if you have a pose or a movement that looks good, like even slower, then use that, or at least know of something that you can do that looks good like that.
One issue I have is sometimes when I tell people I'm a videographer, they get the idea of what my video is going to look like, they think they have to walk in slow motion. But no, you walk at a normal pace. I turn it into slow motion. It just looks so awkward on camera after you walk
it
in
is
slow
so
motion.
easy to just right click and reduce speed by 50% later on.
Yeah.
Then
What would you think, as photographers and videographers, what do you think is the thing that people overlook the most when, like regardless of new cosplayer or like veteran in the field?
first and foremost, you gotta hide your badge. That shows.
It's an easy mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to fix, but it does show up if you forget about it.
It's hard. Sometimes it can be hard to Photoshop out as well. So
Yeah, it is.
I think what's really great, like just a tip going off of that, is finding ways to hide your badge. Often, because I know conventions often just use the lanyard or like that string. If you can have your own personalized badge holder that has a pin on it, so it'll pin onto your costume, that way you won't lose it.
Yeah.
And you could hide it under a flap of clothing.
yeah, I was just gonna suggest if you could pin it underneath a flap. So when you go to security, you could just lift that flap to show it to them, but it still remains hidden. Another tip I have is that when you're doing a photo shoot with a photographer, after taking some pictures, always ask if you could see the photos, because sometimes the photographer may think it turned out all right, but you might not be happy with it. And when you see the photos, you could see what you're doing wrong in it. Either, your head is tilted too low, or you're not smiling enough, or exactly. So definitely look at the photos and it'll help you improve.
I have a habit, even without the masking, to just show them what I just filmed or took a picture of, because I'd rather they, even if they don't know what they're looking at really, if it's good or not, I just want them to see it. So I'm like, yeah, you totally like this, right? so I like to make a habit of doing that.
And I think sharing your contact information as well with so you have somewhere to find them, because I know I've done photo shoots or just like a mini photo shoot, and I haven't been able to find those photos because I never asked them who they were or what their page was. And I think it's great to get a business card.
As a videographer, what I like to do is anytime I shoot a quick video with someone, and this applies completely to photos as well, I'll get their email. I don't have business cards yet, so right now I'm just getting their email. So when I'm done, I could just do a massive email blast to everyone saying, your photos, your videos are done, you could check them out here. The good thing about that is that they know exactly when it's out, and they could freely share them with people. And especially if you do, yeah, and if you do have a business card, definitely hand it out, because it's just going to drive traffic to your site and get you more exposure. Another good tip that I learned is that when you're posing, exaggerate your poses to a point where it feels really awkward. Even though it feels awkward, it looks 10 times better on camera when you just exaggerate every single one of your movements. It seems weird at first, but when you try it in front of a mirror and take a picture, it looks a lot better on camera. So that's something to try out.
And why is that?
It just, I don't know, like sometimes when you just pose, of course this is a podcast, so you can't demonstrate it.
Let's say you're doing a pose where you're pointing at the camera.
I think it just makes it more
so
dynamic.
instead of just pointing, you could just point like that. It looks more dynamic, and it just shows up crisper
on camera.
So you gotta
twist your torso a little bit to make it
just
really
give
look
it
like
120%.
I think it goes back to being aware of your body, utilize your costume. Kind of don't just point, thrust your hips, whatever. Do a JoJo. I don't know.
Those hips don't lie. Hey, John, I know you haven't cosplayed that much, but you have cosplayed. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you remember any photo shoots?
For the one I did, it was just a big group cosplay.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And
Well, you've actually done a few group cosplays.
You've done a few.
Well, I know of like a particular cosplay that you and Pat did together, where you were hipster version.
Yeah.
Of Zelda.
I was in that too.
I forgot. I forgot about
Who
that.
were you in that
I was
one?
hipster chic.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. That was. Oh yeah.
Didn't know you guys
Who
back
did that
then.
shoot with us?
What you mean, like name drops?
Like who took the picture?
Yeah, no, I honestly forgot. I don't know if you wanted to name drop or not.
The picture, I think, Novi did those.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, that was fun.
Wait, maybe I might be wrong. I think it was him.
Could have
Right?
I don't
been
think it was
Ami
him. I
as
didn't
well.
know him then.
Yeah.
Ami-chan?
Yeah, he might have. Yeah. I can't remember. It was
That's
like
a
2 years
tangent,
ago
yeah.
at least.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
And just another tip: be friendly, make friends, get involved in your community. Like be friends with photographers, and of course they'll probably want to shoot with you more than just some random person.
The community is really small, so it's really easy to get to know everyone, because like everyone is within like 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
So
well,
you know one
especially
person,
here.
you know a lot more.
I want to ask about photographers that charge versus free photographers. So do you guys have like a preference or like an opinion either way?
I know there's some free photographers that shoot just as good or even better than paid photographers. It's just a matter of getting a spot with them, because they always book up really quickly. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of against paid at the moment, because there's no photographers that really stand out in their work that I would pay for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen some that they take really nice
No,
pictures.
no offense to
Yeah.
photographers.
They take really nice pictures, and I honestly think they are like good enough to charge for pictures.
That's true.
Now, how much they're charging though, I'm not sure if I agree with.
A part of the reason a few of them charge is because they get asked so much that
They have to limit it down.
yeah, it's sort of a limiting thing.
One thing I think is really interesting that I've seen some photographers do is they'll often offer one free photo, and maybe even edit it, and then the rest of the photos you can get on like a hard disk, or and they'll be edited, and they'll just charge you for those ones, which is really neat. One local cosplay related photographer I know in the area is Cosplay for a Cure, and they do I think it is free. I've shot with them before. I just can't remember. I think it's free, and then you can pay what you want
To donate.
To donate, and it's a really great thing, and the photos are really good too.
As far as getting one picture and for the rest of the pictures for free, like as far as that goes, I thought it was like good practice to like, let's say, take 100 and 200 pictures, whatever, but only release like maybe 5 of them, the 5 best ones. I thought that was just
definitely
the general
is.
practice anyway. So
Well, I mean, they will take a set of photos, give you one that maybe not their best, maybe their best for free, that's edited, and then they'll release like maybe 7 of them, and they're not going to give you 100 unedited photos.
They're only gonna pick
They're
the
gonna
top
pick the
5,
best
top
ones,
7.
but you pay for those ones, and it's kind of nice because you get a sampler, you get to see their work, and you're like, well, do I like what this guy's done?
hey, you know what that reminds me of? Video games when they are like free to play, but then you can like pay to buy the DLCs and like
DLC,
skins.
exactly.
That's what that is.
Okay, one of the things I do with my cosplayers is I do sort of a basic edit, like just lighting and stuff, but a lot of them have been asking for the raw photos, just so they can edit themselves. And I don't charge either, so they like
Okay.
that.
About that, don't be offended by this. Okay, I don't know if this is the case, okay?
Okay.
But I have heard a lot of people saying how like they don't like the way the photographers Photoshop their photos.
Yeah.
So they would rather just get the raw and Photoshop the
Yeah,
photos themselves.
that's
which
kind of
is
why I
fine.
do that, because when I edit I don't actually like really edit my photos. That's part of the reason I don't charge for my photos, because I really just bring them into Adobe Bridge and fix the lighting or the exposure or whatever, and it's really basic. But most of the time, the cosplayers that I shoot with, I just ask them, hey, do you want the just raw photos? Maybe if you want to do whatever you want with them yourselves. And they usually say, yeah, sure, give me the raws, and I'll give them that.
I'm totally conflicted. As a cosplayer, I would love the raw files because I love to edit. But as a photographer, I love to edit, so I want to do it myself. And I do a lot of post-processing, so I often like to shoot very wide and then crop it in later to kind of frame it better. And I like to play around with the colors and whatnot. And so when you compare the before and after, it's really drastic. And I feel if I a lot of times when I take pictures, I almost don't want to show people just the raw because it looks bad. Like I shoot on a really flat color profile, so it just looks like a really flat, boring image until I edit it and really give it life. So I really don't like showing people my raws.
One thing as a photographer that it's like in my mind, if you gave someone a raw photograph and then they edit it really bad or really poorly, would you want them still advertising that you took the photo?
Well,
Definitely not.
Okay, see, when I give them raws, I give them my watermark as a separate file. I don't put them on the pictures.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Usually when they post them, they'll say, yeah, I edited these or something, and they were taken originally by Linkspeaks and
Okay.
whatever.
Fair.
But, yeah.
Interesting.
That's actually a really good point. Like, yeah, what if like you give them the raws and then they edit them, like the bodies, like you know how like they can make them skinnier, but like really poorly done, and then it's like, hey,
That's
it's
true.
taken by Linkspeaks. It's like, wait, no, I took that, but I didn't
I
edit
mean,
it
yeah.
at all.
I didn't put all this this
put that
shooping
cat
on them.
Emoticon in the corner, and no.
So maybe it's better to make it like just one way or the other, right? Just like either edit them or like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but if you
I-
don't, and if you send them, and then they like you send them out, and then they're gonna edit them for like. Yeah, it's kind of.
But you know what? If you don't like the way they edited it, you could just always just be like, hey, could you just take my name off of that?
Yeah.
So to sum it up, I guess, as a cosplayer, know your character, do some research, practice posing, get at least, 4 or 5 good poses in that you have in your back pocket to take out. If you can as well, practice a good pose of motion that you could showcase in a video, and do some research on photographers.
Yeah, exaggerate your poses. That's a good one.
Think so?
Yeah. So, we've been talking about photographers and photography for a while now. We're
And a
gonna
lot
end-
on videography.
Yeah,
we
and
can't help it.
videography
We
too.
can't help it, okay?
Well, yeah, that's we have a bias about that, but that's just who we are. So, for podcast, I guess, I've been Pat.
Mars?
I'm still Rachel.
I'm John.
And thank you for listening to our podcast. I hope you liked it and whatever. Thanks. Bye.